Jude Bellingham collapsed in the tunnel 20 minutes before England's opening World Cup match against Ghana. And right now, nobody's saying why. It wasn't just a stumble. It wasn't exhaustion. It wasn't a minor dizzy spell the medical team handled routinely. This is serious. Nothing like this has ever happened to England's star midfielder in the hours before a World Cup opener. And there's a detail the FA still hasn't confirmed publicly. Sources close to the squad say it didn't come out of nowhere. And the worst part? The tension that led to this moment is still locked inside that dressing room, and it's about to explode across the entire tournament. When something like this happens, 36 hours before you're supposed to face Ghana in a group stage match you can't afford to lose, it's not just a medical problem. It's a statement. It's a crack in the foundation. It's the moment when you realize the biggest threat to England's World Cup isn't the opposition. It's what's happening behind closed doors. And the behind the scenes of this is worse than it looks, because this didn't start in the tunnel. It started in a tactical session days earlier, when Bellingham and Thomas Tuchel found themselves on opposite sides of a very different kind of collision. Here's what went down. Wednesday afternoon, training ground in the United States, Tuchel introduced a new midfield shape. Bellingham was being moved deeper, narrower, away from the box-to-box attacking role that's defined his entire season at club level. Sources close to the squad say Bellingham pushed back. Not publicly, not loudly, but firmly. He argued he was being muted by the system, that his World Cup performance depends on freedom in the attacking third, that England's midfield was wasting its best asset by asking him to do something he wasn't built for. Tuchel's response, according to what's being said behind the scenes, was direct. Elite athletes adapt. The collective comes first. Your comfort doesn't matter more than the team's needs. That was Wednesday. By Thursday, the temperature in the camp had shifted. Nobody crossed the line publicly, but the coaching staff knew what was happening. You could feel it in the sessions. Then came Friday morning, the day of the Ghana match. Bellingham went into the dressing room for a final tactical walkthrough, and according to information going around, Tuchel reminded him of the shape, the role, the expectations. No flexibility, no negotiation. This was how England would line up, and this was how Bellingham would play, or he wouldn't play at all. And that's when Bellingham left the dressing room. He walked toward the tunnel for the pre-match warm-up, and about 20 minutes before kickoff, Jordan Pickford noticed him slow his pace. The captain was heading out for his own routine when he saw it. Bellingham stumbled, caught himself, then sat down hard on the bench beside the tunnel entrance. One physio moved immediately. Then another. Tuchel turned away and walked back into the dressing room without a word. Jordan Pickford stood frozen, staring at the scene in front of him. The silence in that moment. Bellingham on the bench, Pickford's shocked expression, Tuchel's sharp exit. That's the image that leaked within hours. That's the image nobody was supposed to see. And it's the image that changed everything. Medical staff were on the radio within seconds. An assessment began immediately. The exact cause. Sources suggest it could have been dehydration, anxiety, or something medical the team hasn't disclosed, was never publicly confirmed. The FA only said it was precautionary. But here's where it gets darker, because word started spreading inside the squad within minutes. What's being said behind the scenes is that this wasn't a random medical episode. This was a player buckling under the weight of a confrontation with his manager, hours before the biggest match of his career. Some players in that dressing room saw Bellingham as standing up for himself, refusing to be broken by tactical demands that didn't suit his game. Others saw it as a breach of unity at the absolute worst moment, as ego getting in the way of the national team when the nation needed him most. Declan Rice, his midfield partner and someone who's trained alongside Bellingham since the youth academy, reportedly knew the tension was building but stayed publicly silent. That silence itself became deafening. The coaching staff, meanwhile, turned defensive. One physiotherapist told journalists privately that the medical assessment was completely routine, that speculation about stress was unfounded, that this was just precaution and nothing more. But nobody believed it. Not after what people had seen in the tunnel. Not after the timing. The FA issued a brief statement. Bellingham would be under medical observation. No decision on participation would be made until final clearance. The player's health was the priority. It was damage control, and everyone knew it. Social media exploded within the hour. Fans fractured into two camps immediately. One side argued that Tuchel's defensive, rigid system was suffocating England's most dangerous midfielder, that Bellingham was right to resist, that a manager who can't keep his best player happy before a World Cup has already lost the dressing room. The other side was furious. They saw a player letting personal grievance contaminate the national team's preparation, ego overriding commitment when the stakes couldn't be higher. Harry Kane, who shared a dressing room with Bellingham for years and understands the pressures of World Cup football, said nothing publicly, but was reportedly consulted by both camps. Bukayo Saka, another senior figure who's been through tournament campaigns, also kept his distance from the narrative, at least in public. The British press naturally smelled blood. By evening, the headlines were screaming rift, crisis, Bellingham in tunnel drama, everything else. The Ghana match, the group stage, England's chances was secondary. The story had become the story. And now Thomas Tuchel is caught between two impossible decisions. If he keeps Bellingham out of the Ghana match, he enters a World Cup without his most creative midfielder available. His midfield lacks its spark, and the narrative dominates coverage through the entire group stage. England would have to line up Eberechi Eze instead, and while Eze offers quality, he's a different player. He brings something else, not what Bellingham brings. But if Tuchel puts Bellingham back on the pitch against Ghana after all of this, the message is clear. Bellingham won. The manager blinked. Authority just collapsed in front of the entire squad. And any player who wants to push back on a tactical decision now knows exactly how to do it. The medical clearance is expected within 24 hours. Ghana kicks off in 36 hours. That's the clock ticking. The FA hasn't opened any formal investigation into what happened in that dressing room or what was said, though there's reportedly pressure building for them to do exactly that. An investigation would signal something serious. It would signal that they don't trust Tuchel's account, that they think something crossed a line that requires examination. But an investigation also destabilizes everything right before the tournament starts. And here's the detail almost nobody noticed yet. A video circulated hours after the incident, not of the collapse itself, but of Bellingham leaving the medical room afterward, walking alone through a side corridor of the stadium. His face is visible for 3 seconds. Fans have been freeze-framing it, arguing about what his expression means. Is it anger? Is it concern? Is it resignation? Nobody can agree. And that ambiguity is fuel for the speculation that won't stop. There's more, though. According to the channel's findings, an audio recording allegedly exists. Something captured inside the dressing room during that Friday morning tactical discussion. Two journalists have reportedly heard it, but it hasn't been published. The content remains unconfirmed, but sources suggest it's a conversation between Tuchel and Bellingham that would make everything clear. When that leaks, and right now, it feels like a matter of when, not if, this whole story could flip on its head or deepen into something even more serious. This is the moment England didn't see coming. A World Cup campaign that was supposed to be about reclaiming glory, about Tuchel's tactical precision, about Jude Bellingham proving he's a generational talent on the world stage. Instead, it's about a player on a bench in a tunnel, a manager walking away, and a dressing room split down the middle before the tournament has even properly started. The weight of what just happened is crushing. A star player, a new manager, a national team's hopes, all of it fracturing in real time. And look, this is far from over. This is the information going around so far. Over the next few hours, new details should drip out, and they could turn this whole story completely upside down. The audio recording could emerge. Medical reports could be released. More players could break their silence. Everything could shift. Over to you. Did Tuchel's rigid system break Bellingham's commitment to England, or did Bellingham's ego damage the national team before the tournament even began? Write it down below. And if you don't want to find out about the next bombshell after everyone else, subscribe and turn on notifications now. Because when this fully blows up, you'll want to be the first to know, not the last. But here's what nobody's talking about yet. While the medical team was assessing Bellingham in that tunnel, while Tuchel was regrouping in the dressing room, while Jordan Pickford was still processing what he'd just witnessed, there was a shift happening in the squad's hierarchy that changes everything moving forward. The question isn't just whether Bellingham plays against Ghana anymore. The question is what happens to England's entire midfield structure, to the trust between players and management, to the tactical foundation Tuchel came here to build. Because if Bellingham comes back fit and takes the field, Declan Rice has to wonder what just happened. Rice has been England's anchor for years, the midfielder every manager trusts to stabilize the engine room. But now he's watching his partner potentially bend a system because of one conversation with the boss. That creates fractures. That creates doubt. Sources close to the squad suggest Rice has been fielding questions from other midfielders. Elliot Anderson, Kobbie Mainoo, even players on the bench wondering what the rules actually are now. Can you push back? Does tactical authority mean anything if the best player gets special treatment? Or does everyone have to accept what they're told? And then there's the international window itself. England's got Ghana, then Serbia, then Switzerland. 3 matches to win the group, 3 matches before knockout football. If Bellingham misses even one of these, Ebereki Eze steps in, and Eze is a different player entirely. More creative in transition, less defensively reliable, a different tactical puzzle. The coaching staff has to plan for both scenarios simultaneously. Do they prep 2 completely different midfield shapes? Do they drill both approaches? The fitness coaches are already stressed enough without medical uncertainty making their jobs impossible. What's being said behind the scenes now is that Tuchel might be forced into a retreat, not a full one, but enough to signal flexibility. Maybe Bellingham gets deployed in a slightly higher position than originally planned. Maybe the system bends just enough to keep him comfortable without totally collapsing the structure. That's how these things usually resolve in dressing rooms. Someone wins, someone loses, but everyone pretends it was always the plan. Except this time, everyone saw it. Everyone knows what actually happened in that tunnel. Harry Kane, who's been through every England crisis of the last decade, reportedly told senior coaching staff privately that this needs to be resolved quietly or it explodes. Kane knows what a divided dressing room looks like in a World Cup. He's seen it before. Marcus Rashford and Anthony Gordon, the young wingers who need a stable midfield behind them, are reportedly concerned about what comes next. Bukayo Saka, another leader in that squad, has been notably silent publicly, which sources suggest means he's having very careful conversations privately with both camps. Trying to be the bridge, trying to prevent this from becoming an all-out war. The FA is in crisis mode, not just from a medical standpoint, but from a governance one. If they don't act decisively, they're endorsing player power over managerial authority at the worst possible moment. But if they come down too hard on Bellingham, if they suspend him or issue a formal charge, they've crippled their own team before the tournament even started. They're trapped. The same trap Tuchel is in. The same trap England is in. Medical clearance could come this morning. It could come tonight. But even when Bellingham gets the green light to play, and sources suggest he will, because the symptoms were acute and not structural, the real damage is already done. The precedent has been set. The dressing room knows that a player can walk away from a tactical meeting, that a player can force a conversation through crisis. That elite commitment can have conditions attached to it. That's the legacy of what happened in that tunnel. Not whether Bellingham plays on Sunday, but what England looks like as a team when everyone's watching, when every training session has undercurrents, when the manager has to wonder if his next tactical decision is going to trigger another standoff. This is what happens when a World Cup campaign fractures before the tournament properly begins. Everything that follows is shaped by it. Every decision carries the weight of what came before. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because the next 48 hours will tell you everything about whether England can pull this together or whether this rift becomes a full-blown crisis that defines their entire campaign.